And so then like that poop just exploded like all over the walls. This is great. Oh, I think we're live. Are we live? Hey, people in the chat, are we live? Man, that was embarrassing. Whew. Okay.
Oh man.
Here we are, people. This is Draw and Talking with Tyler Carpenter, good friend of us and good friend of our channel. And he is going to be closing out here pretty soon his campaign for The Girl with the Mega Fists, which is on Kickstarter right now. To be honest, Tyler, like it just seemed like the other day we were just talking about this, and now it's ending. It's a really fast campaign.
I know. Well, how long have you guys done your Common? How long did you guys do your Common America? This volume 5.
Oh my gosh, 57 days.
How many?
57. 57.
Oh yes. So mine 24 days.
Dadgum.
Mine's 24 days, and then my Indiegogo after this will be 18 days.
Wow.
I'm trying to figure out how you guys fit in 3 campaigns a year, because I'm trying to do the same thing, and I'm like, how do they find the time to print, do the campaign, print, fulfill, ship onto the next?
Well, I think there's a key difference. It's a give and take. You actually produce more pages than I do, because you have to go with the Mega Fist, which is like 200 roughly pages, right? Like it's a big tome. So you've had to put that work in. And for us, we produce about that many pages a year, but we divide it between 3 campaigns. So essentially you're doing the same amount of work that we are. It's just in a different way. And you do all your fulfillment yourself too.
That's true. Well, I mean, this summer, I'm putting out an omnibus of a past work and a past book, and then in the fall I'll have volume 2 of The Girl with the Mega Fist, and then come 23 volume 3 of The Girl with the Mega Fist. But like, man, like even then, I'm thinking that the whole process to campaign, print, ship, and fulfill is like 3 or 4 months. It's pretty. You guys it's pretty like tight.
I'm gonna clip that.
It's just
tight.
Like how long? Like once you guys are finished with a campaign, when do you guys put up your pre-launch? You guys do them pretty quick. Like,
yeah. So the books actually just shipped today. So from the printer, we got some of the batch in earlier this week, and then all of them shipped today. So those will be arriving either tomorrow or Monday. We always order everything before the campaign is over, but the next one for Indiegogo, we're going to launch that the moment we start the fulfillment, which is going to be about 14 days after the last day, which is Tuesday, the Ides of March. So by March 28th, we should be launching it on Indiegogo, but it's fast. It's going to be either 10 or 14 days, and then that's it. We're only limiting it to, I think, 400 or 500 copies, and that's it. And then after that, once that fulfillment is done, we'll go right into the summer crossover, which should put us in either mid-April or early May by then. So yeah, we don't waste time, but it is tough. I think the hardest part is the logistical hurdle of lining everything up, making sure all the inventory is in and it's accounted for. And as of this morning, they did a final count to make sure all the inventory was there. We have everything, and that's all gravy, which is good. So I look at you with some degree of envy, because I'm like, man, I miss those days where the campaigns were lean, and your margins are better too, because like a lot of people get impressed by the numbers where they're like, oh man, like it seems like you're raking it in. And it's like, yeah, but you also have greater overhead. You have a bigger budget that has to go for the marketing. And then you have like all the tchotchkes that go into it that you actually have to like pay for. Whereas I remember when we were starting off, it was like, you just get a standee. Like that's the only thing you had to worry about. And then at the end of the day, let's say you make like $10,000 and you're pocketing like $3,000. Well, that's still in a way better than if you're making like $18,000 and you're only pocketing $3,200. It's very deceiving.
I was talking with creators, and I'm like, dude, just like don't get super envious of these big campaigns. You don't know how much they're pocketing. Right. Yeah, because for all you know, they're like, oh, look at that $50,000 campaign, but they only got to keep like, like maybe 5,000, because millions of covers, tchotchkes. I mean, in all that stuff, you got to pay like beforehand. Like, I have for volume 2, we have a statue we're putting out, but like it costs money to make the statue, and it's going to cost money to print it. It's going to cost money to paint it, and then we're already in the negative.
Yeah.
At that point. So yeah, the logistics of running a campaign, that's not the fun part. It's always making the book.
No, it's not the fun part. And then I have to worry about the spreadsheets too, calculating how everything works, and at the end of the day, like making sure that both Mark and I will get paid something at the end of it. There was one campaign, and it was last year. I think it was our spring campaign. So that was on Common 3. I had warned Mark. I said, your paycheck's going to be tiny, because I'm basically going to go ahead and put all the work for the year in that campaign and deduct it. So whatever we make on that campaign, you'll be lucky if you make $500, because I'm just going to go ahead and get all the work done now to cover us for the end of the year. And essentially, that's actually what I'm doing for this campaign too. I already paid all the artists for the calendar that we're putting out in the fall, and we're just going to deduct that from this one. So, Mark, if you're listening,
Mark's like, wait, what? Are you gonna? Question is, with the calendar, is will you get it to the backers in time so they can actually use the calendar?
Yes, because I
Congrats.
don't know why are people late. Why is someone late on a calendar? Because I mean,
yeah,
you have a bunch of domestic choices. I mean, I quote this stuff out. I got at least 4 quotes from domestic calendar printers. So if someone is saying that they're late on theirs, I really think that's a lame excuse, because
it's on a boat right now for someone.
It's on a boat. They got ripped off, or they
it's on a boat. So I'm like,
research.
Clearly this like person got duped, or they surround themselves with bad friends, because it's like this like if I buy a calendar from you, I expect to use it from January to December.
Right. And ours, we ordered it, and within, I think, 10 to 13 days, it was already delivered to us, like completely printed. And we printed 3,500 of them. It was a lot. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. When I hear, oh, so-and-so is late on their calendar, but that's excusable because it's their first time doing it. It's like they're lying to you, or something else is going on, because it does not take this long to do that.
And when you realize how long things actually take, when you finally do it, you realize, oh my gosh, I think I've gotten duped a couple times when I back some of these books, and they'll give you the excuse, and you go, oh, like that's fair, and then you actually do it yourself, and you're like, wait a minute, that wasn't that as hard as I thought. And also, it's like a lot of it's just like the logistics of it. Like, I know that I need to, I know that I'm going to be shipping at least 150 packages. So I should probably, in the meantime, right, while like things are not, like I'm not having to do anything with the books, I should just make 150 boxes, since I fulfill all I'm small enough that I can fulfill myself. I should, on my spare time, start building all these boxes and start bagging and boarding. And, hey, you got a bot coming in. Naked HD. Nice.
Yeah, I think if there's any wrenches in the chat, if you want to do something with that, not unless that's your thing and you want to click on it. What if it's not a bot? What if it is someone who's just?
I don't know. If whatever link that they put on, go give your device AIDS and click on that link.
The funny thing about those types of bots is that in the early days of the internet, you'd always see these ads for like hot single moms in your area, and you'd always think like, oh, that's like spam and whatnot. But nowadays, it's like you have apps like Tinder, where it's literally like women who are like trying to find hookups and stuff. And I feel so old, because I'm like, what? Like back in the day, you'd think that was all a scam, because what woman
it's real now.
Yeah.
Well, there is even some comic sites like webtoon type comics. Like there's one called Toon Mix, and there was like, it's like, does my girlfriend's mom's hitting on me? Read the comic, and I'm like, what? And she's like holding like a cucumber. She's just like, I love this cucumber, and you're like, wait, what? Like, this is inappropriate. I clicked on it. Takes me to this comic book reading app. I read a couple of them, and then I found out there's explicit content on there, and that's where that one was. And I'm like, crap. And my kid could have clicked on that ad for all I know. And yeah.
I think the interesting thing about kind of where the internet is going is that just under a decade ago, you had these like ad blockers and stuff like that. There was ways that you could control things to be safe. But I think that right now it's like a minefield where by the time your kid is like 12, and if they've been on the internet like at least once in that time frame, they're gonna see something, if not explicit, they're gonna see things like nudity on there. Whereas like, shoot, I was so sheltered. I remembered like from the time I was a kid to the time I was in high school, I don't think I saw like hardly any nudity whatsoever because
dude, I
it
had
was so easy to filter that stuff out.
I'd walk home from school, and the fastest way was you going through this forest that connected like the school to the neighborhood. And so we're walking, me and my friends are walking through the forest, and this dude's there, and we're like, what? And he goes, hey kids, you want this box? And we're like, okay. And I'm in like 7th grade, and he puts this box down, and he just walks away, and inside are a bunch of like 1970s, like 80s
Playboys, yeah.
And I'm like, what's that? Then that's a boob. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is nuts. I immediately knew I wasn't supposed to be looking at it. But then like my friend was just like, oh my gosh, do they have like sex in this? And I was like, what's sex? And I didn't understand the concept, and then I asked my parents. They go, and my parents did not do a good job. They're like, "Oh, it's kissing." I'm like, "Oh, my parents have a lot of sex." So we were at school, and we learned about how babies are made, and I did not understand. Like, I'm like, I have the sperm, she has the egg. How do they meet? I don't get this. And my friend was like, "Yo, I'll show you. You come to my house," and he showed me, and I went, "Oh gosh."
Oh no.
So but I was just so sheltered, whereas like now you go on like TikTok, there's just girls shaking their booty all day on there, and you could be 12 and be like, this is the best app in the world. It's so easy.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's all good, obviously, but
no,
I'm wondering too if it just leads to the rapid desensitization of like younger people. I remember the thing I can equate it to the most is when I was living in France. It was in 2000, and they're so like sexually liberated over there that whenever you go to where the red light district is, which is called Pigalle, it's where the Moulin Rouge is. I mean, you get off the subway and like the whole street is themed towards one thing and one thing only. But it was different because like you would just have families like walking down the street like it was nothing. And I was like, there's a depravity to it, and also kind of this weird irony to it where it's like maybe the temptation just isn't there because it's always there. So it's like, who cares? It's just,
yeah. I brought that up to my dad, who was just like, shut up. I was just like, dude, I was like, Dad, do you think it ever gets to the point where like, we just like don't sexualize women, and we just like look at women and we just look at them naked and we go, yeah, you appreciate them for your body, and it's okay that you look at naked women? And my dad was like get out of here. And I was like, oh, I was trying to like come up with like a legit like thesis, and he was just like, you don't look at naked women, it gets you aroused, and then you're sinning. I'm like, okay, Dad.
Well, for people listening, I obviously don't agree with I don't agree with that type of atmosphere in general for children. I think that children should be as innocent for as long as they need to be. But I'm an optimist. I'm always trying to find the silver lining in everything, because Lord knows, like, the internet has gotten kind of crazy in terms of a lot of our ethics and morals and whatnot.
You know what though? What's kind of like been nice about what's kind of going on with the world is you see these parents who kind of been like trusting the system and like putting their kids in these schools and being like what'd you learn today? And like the kids don't really say anything, and the parents just kind of treat them like the school like babysitters. And now the parents are kind of like, wait, hold the phone. What are you actually teaching my kid?
Oh yeah.
And they're realizing, oh my gosh, and now they're holding the schools and the teachers more accountable. And so there's a part of me that's like, it's sad that maybe it's gone so degenerate, but at the same time, I'm glad that parents are kind of like stepping up to the plate and going like, this isn't okay at all.
Yeah, basically, it's one of those things where there's one of these logical fallacies. It's the appeal to authority. It's the idea that um, people are right simply because they're the authority figure on the subject. And you see it all the time, especially in the sciences, whenever it's like, oh, well, I agree with this opinion because this celebrity scientist says so. It's like, well, that's not science. All you're doing is using appeal to authority. But I think to some extent that exists in the human psyche because you need it just for basic function. Like you want to think that your doctors know what they're doing. And you want to think that most people in law enforcement in general, by and large, are there looking out for the common good and wanting to preserve the law. And you think that your teachers are there to basically babysit your kids for 7 to 8 hours a day and teach them what they need to learn. But like what you were saying, the reality is that we've already gone through a generation where essentially we've seen that a lot of them in that system have basically failed us. And I think that that realization is good because I always feel like anytime we exert our independence and our self-reliance, I think that's the better option. Now, obviously, I don't think all of us can do that because, like for example, there's a big movement for like homeschooling and stuff like that, which I agree with. But it's like, so for some people, that's just not feasible. There's not enough time in the day to do it. But kudos to you if you can.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
My aunt was like, I'm going to homeschool my kids because I don't trust the system and I'm going to be way better. And she would homeschool them for an hour and then like bounce and her kids would just play video games all day. And like now they're all like 25 years old, like still living at their parents' house. Like, and they have like the mentality of like a 12-year-old still. So I'm like pro homeschooling, but I'm like, it better be good because I've seen like what happens if you don't do a good job.
Yeah, it's not always good. There can be parents who just aren't good teachers. And so what they end up learning, and you have that too in terms of let's say religion. So I was listening to this podcaster who I really love. He has a really good channel, and he was saying that what was he talking about? I think the topic was on like faith and reason and how some things in science, like some people take really seriously because, for example, let's say it's creationism. Like, is the earth only 60,000 years old, or is it like billions and billions of years old? And for some people, that's a crucial thing to know because it basically determines their whole outlook on religion. And if they feel like it's they've believed like a lie their whole life, they start questioning everything in that sphere. And I think that the same thing can happen too with on the flip side of things. Let's say with homeschooling, if you have a parent who is just not a good teacher, the opposite can happen. The intention might be to get them away from kind of erroneous teaching in the public system, but maybe the private system is no better when they end up learning something that doesn't prepare them necessarily for the real world. And the good thing is, like, for example, when I went to private school, a lot of it was focused on is it the Socratic Method? It's this idea of there is no such thing, like, you don't get offended by just asking the question, because the reality is that if you are trying to reach a truth, you are going to try and get to the bottom of it, no matter how tough those questions might be. So it was basically a no nonsense high school I went to, where it was like no one gets offended. It was an all boys school, so it was like no one gets offended. We can all take it. Blah blah blah. And I was shocked when I got to college.
That's why you have such thick skin.
Well, I was shocked because when I went to college, I would ask questions and people would get offended, and it's like, I can't believe you offended that person. I was like, what? Like, I thought this was a debate. Like, don't they lose by default when I make them cry?
Oh, yeah. When I yeah, well, that also baffled me too when I went to college, was because I was in journalism. I was a journalism student, and they're like, always question everything, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna question everything. Yeah. And I one time was in this class, I got duped. I thought it was like important. But it was like a cultural diversity class. And they brought in like the LGBT people. And they were telling me all their different sexualities, and like, to me, I'm like, you're gay, you're lesbian, you're bi, you're straight. Like, that's it. Like, you're either liking girls, you like men, you like both. Congrats. And so they're like, I'm demi. and I'm pan. And I remember just asking like what the F? Like what's the point? Like, where do we go from here? Like what's the point of saying like I'm only attracted based off of feelings. I'm attracted based on my feelings too. They go, but then they're like, but I'm not attracted to their physicality. And I'm like, okay, like congrats, like you're still straight. And they go, no, because I'm pan. And I'm like, and then I asked, I was like, do you give yourself these new identities because you want to be better than people? I got kicked out of the class. Professor Janet Colvin, jerk, she kicked me out of the class because she was like, that was a really insensitive question. And I was like, if you're going to bring in a panel of people who are going to teach us about something new that breaks my entire like thought process on sexuality, I feel like I should be like, why? Like, why is this with class? Why? And a lot of the students would be like, shut that kid up. Or the professors are like, because I said so. And I'm like, what? Like, I had one teacher who who was always cool with questioning. And he was like, Tyler, he's like, Tyler, I like that you question everything I say. I went, thanks. He goes, I have a question for you. You promise to be honest? I'm like, yeah. He goes, have you ever encountered aliens? And I was like, I have two stories. I think I have two moments in my life where I think I encountered aliens. He goes, I thought so. Keep it real.
For real? This is a story I need to hear maybe by the end of the episode.
I'll let you know.
Dude, so there's two things related to that, and then we'll talk about your book, The Girl with the Mega Fist. Is the first one that I can recall is, oh crap, don't get me. Oh man, I think my brain train just derailed and I completely forgot
oh no
what I was gonna say. But there was one for sure. I remember the other one was this just goes to show like okay, I remember the first one. So the entire reason tenure exists is the idea that professors should not have to fear saying crazy stuff, because the idea is that the university system is to encourage a marketplace of ideas, so that protection is there. Now, the protection by default should also go to students as well, because that's the entire point of the university system, is like basically you can just say kind of weird stuff. And in the marketplace of ideas, you try to get your point across in that way, shape, or form. Now, I think it's kind of changed, obviously, where there's like right opinions, wrong opinions, and tenure has a really bad reputation. And I think it's merited as far as like its bad reputation is concerned, because they're just basically trying to protect professors and insulate them, whereas a lot of that is not extended to other people, which is sad. But the second thing I remember was, I think I was a sophomore, and they brought in, I think, this Native American speaker, this advocate, and the lecture was about offensive stereotypes in advertising. And for his example, he was bringing up like, the Redskins and whatnot. And he had this slide prepared, and he said, how many of you would be offended by something like this? And he brought up this thing where it was like the Chicago Chinks or something, and it was just like this yellow-faced dude with buck teeth, and I like died laughing. I was like the only guy in the audience just crying. And then he brought up this other one where it was like the San Francisco Ninjas, and it was like, it was except the whatever the football team was, it was just a dude wearing ninja gear. And he's like, you find this funny? I was like, I think it's hysterical. He's like, well, stand up. And I stood up, and I was like an Asian guy, and he was just like, he couldn't say anything because he just thought, oh crap, like
you just like checkmate.
Yeah, and I just basically told him, I was like, I just think you're full of crap, because most people like it's a joke. Second, I think it's actually kind of flattering, because these are people who are fighting to win, and if their mascot happens to be someone who depicts Asians in a certain way, yes, it is an anachronism from a past time, but most people aren't so holden to it that they hold an animosity towards that people. I don't think Washington Redskins fans have an animus towards Native Americans just because they like the Redskins mascot or the team. Like, that has nothing to do with it. It just happened to be associated with them. So if anything, it's a term of endearment. It reminds me of,
oh yeah, dude, I'd root for the San Francisco Ninjas I'd come game day. I'd be in my uniform. I throw a shuriken at the opposing team.
Yeah, so I just know that things have changed, and that if I had tried something like that, I think nowadays it would make it onto YouTube or the news or whatever.
Well, I keep telling my wife, who's white. I'm half Chinese, everyone. Depending on the day I
he's
choose,
black from the waist down.
Yeah. And I'm always, anytime like there's like so and so's getting canceled, or like, oh, so and so's offensive, I go find the root. Who started it? It's probably a white woman. I just say that white women start all the problems.
Oh, there it goes even deeper than that, Tyler. I'll tell you stuff after the stream. Mark and I have a game. Like every time we see a troublemaker who's like trying to start stuff, I'm like, "Woo! I know where this is going." So I'm gonna tell you a cheat code afterwards.
Oh, there we go, perfect. Because yeah, my go-to is just like I have a bunch of like really like liberal family members who are always like they're white saviors. You know, because people of color like you and I, we can't think for ourselves. Like they have to do the thinking for us. And anytime I go, like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for like teaching me that.
I'll tell you, like I was having this talk with Mark on our car ride. I was like, look, don't get me wrong, I grew up around white people my whole life, but y'all, like, I was reading about this. It's like an evolutionary thing. They're like, why are white people like they're so afraid of being canceled? Like they're so afraid of not basically following a pack, and they think it's from an evolutionary perspective. It's because of the harsh climates that like white people
created.
Well, the idea that because of the seasons and stuff like that, let's say you're like in the freezing tundra or something, and you, I don't know, brought shame to the tribe. You didn't want to be exiled because it meant that you would go into a frozen wasteland and die. And that's why I'm so shocked that like it's predominantly like a lot of white people who are like, I disavow. You need to disavow. You need to step away. Like,
maybe it's maybe our like climate thing then in comparison is just like Twitter.
Well, yeah, because like I had that done recently. Like I'm friends with people who are friendly towards me. If you don't give me a reason to if you don't give me a reason to dislike you personally, like if you didn't do anything to me, I'm cool with you. And I typically don't pay attention to what happens between folks online. But recently, like these people, they're mad because I was friends with someone else, and that was the only reason why. And so I basically was like, what do you want me to do? And they're like, I want you to disavow them now. And then I was like, what? Like, this is stupid. And it was coming from someone who is pretty conservative. Like, they're not liberal at all. And I was just like, man, this gotta be like a white person thing. Like, what is this? Like,
it's gotta be a white person thing.
It has to be, because I was like, no Asian I've met has cared about stuff like this. I take that back. The Californian Asians are really big into that. But I was like, no Asian person.
But we disavow those Asians.
My black friends don't care. Hispanic friends don't care. Like, no one does that. And they're just like, yeah, I don't know why, but Tim's friend was an asshole over there. It ain't no dang. Like, we're so cool. It's like only white people. Like, they're so big into disavowing and stepping away and distancing themselves. So people have asked, they're like, well, what happens if like Tyler Carpenter like murdered someone, and like, what would you do? I'd be like, go ask him. Like, I'm not the one who killed someone. Like, well, will you still be friends with him? I'm like, he didn't kill me. Like, talk to him. Like, why are you questioning me about it? Dang white people. Like,
those whites, man. Those whites. Yeah, that's why I say I'm because I'm half and half. I go like some days I'm white, some days I'm Asian. Like, driver's license, white.
White, yeah.
Trying to get into college, Asian, but it help. Yeah, so you pick and choose, like, you know, what race. I don't think any of my brothers chose Asian on their driver's license. Really offended my mom.
Hey, I gotta let people in the chat know. So full disclosure, I've met Tyler in real life. He's the chillest dude ever. If you guys are ever like in his neck of the woods and he's good with you, you want to like hang out with this guy, because he's the real deal. There's some people.
If I get into your car, first thing I'm going to tell you though is like, listen, if I tell you to hit up a restaurant, it means I got to poop.
I have most of the people we've met online have been like really cool, but you know, there's some people where there's a mismatch. Like they might be really outspoken online, but you meet them in real life and they're really mousy. Like they don't talk or do anything. But you're the real deal, homie.
I try. You know, my dad always said like it never say if you never say something about someone behind someone's back that you would never say to them face to face.
Yeah, or at least you might be. You might be.
I've taken it too much though.
I mean, yeah, well, like by it, but it's a real opinion.
Yeah, like my wife's. I was like, man, I had this friend, and I'm like, man, I hate. He's always freaking late. Like it's so annoying. And she's like, well, like don't talk bad about him. Like you would never tell us to his face. I'm like, I'm gonna. And he like showed up like 40 minutes late. I'm like, Cameron, you're late one more time. I'm never gonna hang out with you again. And he was like, what? And I was like, he goes, we're best friends. I'm like, yeah, but like I'm sick of it. So like if we're gonna hang out next week, I swear on my life, if you do not show up on time, we're never hanging out again. I haven't seen him in 2 years. So
well, that's his fault because if you're a dude, you know, and you're friends, you bust each other's balls all the time. You know, it's just part of the banter. It's part of, you know, being.
No, I had fun. I had fun meeting up with you. That was a really good time, and you showed me that like freaking awesome store that is like not anywhere near me.
Hey, don't feel bad because there's not one near me anymore either. I moved to Arkansas. I know, painful. It's the worst. Hey, speaking of which, so in case we have some people in the chat who don't know much about you or what you have to offer, so Tyler Carpenter, he has a good channel. It's called Draw and Talk. He has a lot of topics that he talks about, pop culture, stuff like that. What I like about his channel is that he talks about stuff he likes. It's so depressing. Like I don't follow too many channels on YouTube, but a lot of them right now are. I listen to a lot of like Catholic podcasts and some engineering videos because all the other stuff is so depressing. Comics, my gosh, like every comics YouTuber that I follow, they just talk about stuff they hate. But kudos to Tyler because he talks about a bunch of stuff. He talks about stuff he likes. He'll talk about some stuff he doesn't like, but you'll also talk about manga. You'll talk about movies. You'll also give tips and advice as far as business and drawing and things like that are concerned. So if you're listening to this, either live or on the replay, make sure to give his channel a like and a follow. I do have the link in the description for this video. But he also has a campaign that's ending really soon. It's ending in actually 26 hours. It's called The Girl with the Mega Fist. Now, if you're listening to this because you like our offerings with Common America, we always say that we have one of the best deals in independent comics because we offer a 64-page hardcover book for $10. This guy is offering a 200-page black and white manga for $15. So as far as business is concerned, we're kind of simpatico because I like his style. He's always trying to find something new to offer and try to be competitive in this space. So hey, Tyler, tell everyone a little bit more about your book and where they can find it and the whole whatever you have to shill.
Yeah, man. So The Girl with the Mega Fist is my new ongoing series. I want to. Is it ongoing if you know there's an end at some point?
Yeah, I'd say it's ongoing.
Yeah, so it's an ongoing series. I plan to put out 2 volumes out a year, each of them being 200 pages. But it's The Girl with the Mega Fist is it's the tale of a girl named Eliana. She's been chosen by the gods to wield the all-powerful Mega Fist and is tasked to protect Earth alongside alongside another partner that's been chosen by another set of gods. And typically, when these gods choose representatives, these heroes, it's always one man and one woman who go down to Earth and protect the humans. And this year, Eliana's been chosen as the one who's going to represent the mega gods, but the almighty gods, this other faction, they chose 2 twin brothers, and essentially Eliana has to choose which one of the brothers she's going to go down to Earth with. And so there's like this kind of like weird like love triangle where she has this task where she needs to train and become the ultimate hero, but she also has to choose which one of these brothers she's going to take down. And she going to bring the one that she's in love with, or is she going to bring in the one that that is the best suited for the job, because one of them she's in love with, the other one's way more powerful. So it's really a story about a girl who's fighting against love, destiny, and really just wanting to be. She has just all this responsibility, and she's being told, "Hey, this is who you need to become." And the common question throughout the story is like, "Well, what if I want to be someone else? What if I want to be me?" I think it's a story that a lot of people can relate to. It's very personal. I think any person who's ever ask the question of why do I have to do this way? That's the kind of the common theme throughout this series. So volume 1 is 200 pages. It's $15, and it starts off our story. The first 4 volumes are going to be quote unquote the training arc, the training arcs of our series. And then at volume 4, she picks one of the brothers, and then the rest of the series will be about them on Earth, protecting Earth from the various, villains and crap they have to fight.
I was overhearing you on, I think it was Nicholas Mueller's channel, and you said something very interesting. You mentioned how there is a thematic through line through a lot of your work where there's a subtext that not necessarily addresses, but is inspired by some of your own thoughts regarding like religion. And I thought that's fascinating. Like, I think that's a great place to start from a writer's perspective, because I don't think it's something unique to you. I think that every person, even people of faith, like you do have those times when we don't have all the answers in the universe. We don't know a lot of times why a creator would have things planned in such a way where certain things like the pain and the evil in the universe occur. But from where you're coming from is like this kind of frustration that people might have where it's like, I believe in this, but there's a part of me that has that doubt, and you rebel against it in a kind of way, or you at least question it. And I think that in a way that's healthy, because in your struggle to balance faith and reason, it is really a balancing act, and we're given both for a reason. And listening to how you talk about the girl with the mega fist, I definitely can see it in terms of, well, I know what I need to do, but is it what I want to do? And I think that kind of duality in terms of the choice that she has to make, I think that's fascinating in terms of, well, how is this going to turn out? Because I think a lot of us, if you're a romantic, you're like, well, I know exactly how this is going to turn out. She's going to pick the love of her life. But if you're thinking rationally, it's like, no, your task is to beat a great evil. Like, you have to sacrifice the thing that you want in order to achieve like the for the common good, so to speak.
Yeah, and not just that, but like tackles on so like where she grows up, it's a place called the Sanctuary, and it's this it's like this, I don't know, landmass that floats above the earth, and there's people there's people who live there, and they worship these gods, and they all know that Eliana is tasked with this huge responsibility, because they see these kids come about and being born every 10 years, and then they train for 20, and then they are thrown into Earth for another 10. They know the job. They know like how important this task is. And so it's like, you if you're part of a religious community, everyone, maybe it's just my community, but everyone seems like they have their life straight. Everyone looks like you go to church, no one's asking questions. Everyone's like, kumbaya, this is great. And you feel like, oh, am I the only one who's freaking struggling with these things? And so a lot of the story as well is these kids have this pressure to perform, to hey, the gods chose you. Everyone else has done it. You should do it. You have to do it too. And what you see throughout the story is, because there's this new dilemma of this choice that Eliana has to make with these two twin brothers. Now everyone's starting to question their life. Like, oh snaps, why did the gods do this? If they're so like powerful, why did they do this? And so now all the characters throughout it that we have throughout the series are now questioning their way of life. And you're now starting to realize, and the characters are starting to realize, wait, someone who I thought was like so stone, like cemented in their beliefs, they're actually completely way off. And so it's a little bit of a commentary on religion. I don't like throwing like my own personal religion stuff in my books. I'm not trying to, you know, baptize you or anything.
Yeah.
But I do think it is a story where that people can relate, in that it's like, man, I just want to make my own decisions. And I feel like sometimes, like, you were told, like, you have this feeling like you have to do this thing because there's so much pressure on like the way you're like brought up.
It's interesting that you mention all of that stuff, because like you're Latter-day Saints and I am Catholic, and here in Arkansas it's predominantly Southern Baptist, and I hear that echoed a lot, where people tell me, like my friends will say like, man, don't you hate it when you go to church on Sundays and everyone's got their life together and everything is peachy keen? And I'm like, I'm Catholic. Like, no one does that. Like, we have lines for confession, because basically the Catholic guilt thing is kind of a real thing. It's like, you're a sinner. You need to go to confession. And so there is, luckily I've never had to deal with that, but I've seen it enough times to know where you're coming from. And I've heard it from other people who are LDS. Like, I know that my good friend Matt Weldon, he's also in that church, and I've heard some of that stuff coming from him too. And if you look at his life, I mean, it seems picture perfect, because he has a wife and a lot of kids and he's happy all the time, but I've seen him get frustrated. And so we know too that underneath the surface, no one has a perfect life. Like, everything is not as rosy as it is. We all have our struggles, but I think that also makes for like good fiction. There is something I'm going to hold on to it for a little bit and ask you that after my next one. So don't let me forget. But for the people in the chat, can you tell us, as far as your fulfillment is concerned, walk with us through the next steps after the campaign ends? So you're going to have an Indiegogo, but I'm thinking for the people who are more interested in the fulfillment, and is the book ready to go? Do you have it in? Let us know a little bit more about that business side of things. Like, what can you say to assure the people listening that they're going to get a book on time, or will they?
This is exciting. Okay, so here, I'm going to turn my camera on.
All right.
What's up? See, like, I'm wearing my merch because this is the only hoodie I own.
I thought it said mega butts.
Everyone thinks it says mega tits, but it's mega fists. So are you going to, if you back the book, are you going to get the book? Here's the Patreon exclusive variant that we have. And there's all 200 pages. Ready?
Oh, that stinks, Tyler.
So if you the question is, are you going to get your book? Absolutely. In fact, I have all the boxes already made. I have all the packaging ready, and on, let's see, today's the 11th. On the week of the 14th to the 18th, I send out the what do you call it, to the printer. I buy the books from the printer. So next week I go to the printer and go, hey, I want here it is, and I pay for it all, and then, you know, it should probably take a couple weeks, and then because we have everything lined up already in my basement in terms of boxes and whatnot, I've spent the last 2 weeks building all that stuff. We're just gonna ship everything out. It'll be a really fast yeah, it's gonna be a really fast fulfillment. I honestly can't think of any problems we're gonna have with everything. I kept everything. I kept everything pretty simple. There are some people who have bought past books that I have, and I thought I had more, and then I didn't. Wow. So I will have to order some of those. But the printer that I worked with on those books, they give it to me in 2 weeks. Yeah. So I could buy them right now and have them in like 2 weeks. So no, so everything is I mean, the fact that the book's done, I'm very proud of.
Absolutely. That's a lot more than a lot of people can say. So people listening, you have that guarantee. You're going to get a book. Trust me, Tyler's a good guy. He doesn't take the money and run. He doesn't sit on it. You're going to get something very, very quickly. Just remember, everyone here in the chat, if you backed his book or if you backed mine on Kickstarter, what's the most important thing? Fill out your survey. Fill out your survey. My gosh. I just got a guide this morning. So we have a deadline. Like, I like what Kickstarter implemented. They have it where whoever the human is who monitors your campaigns, they basically tag your campaign when they feel like the last day of fulfillment was, and you have a year to hold on to surveys and for late surveys to come in. And I had a guy this morning, like at the midnight hour, he just filled in his survey for Common America 3. That thing ended in March of last year. And don't get me wrong, we're going to obviously send him a book, but it's so frustrating because it's
that makes sense now. I had 2 people fill out their surveys for a past book I did last year, and I was like, what? So is that a new thing then that Kickstarter will send them like a message a year later?
So I think they will. Like they'll say, hey, you haven't filled out your survey yet. You need to go do that. Because I was like, where is this guy coming from? Like this guy is like a year late. How in the world do you like? I think you and I have talked about it. I don't understand it because when it comes to like Amazon, if my package is 3 days late, I'm already worrying. I'm like, where is this thing? And it's like that for a lot of things. Like Walmart.com, I do the same thing. I'm always trying to keep up with everything. I'm like, how in the world do you back a project, see the estimated fulfillment date as being like April, and not check on it for a whole year?
Yeah.
Granted, I can, obviously I'm very empathetic if you're like in a coma or if you have a car accident, something happens where it's not something that's your primary focus. But I've met people who I've met people at conventions who were like, hey man, I filled out your survey last week. I was like, oh yeah, for the book? It's like, yeah, the book, the one, Common America Volume 2. I'm like, what? Like, you're the guy who filled out the late survey? and I kind of asked them about it where I'm like, oh, did something happen? Did you have like a divorce or an accident or a death in the family? And they're like, what? No, nothing like that. I just completely forgot about it. And I'm like, my gosh, that stresses me out so much. So everyone in the chat, fill out your surveys. Tyler's survey will be going out to you possibly by as early as Sunday or Monday, somewhere in there.
It'll be quick because I want to print out all the I want to, like I said, I want to print out these labels. I want to have everything organized so that once we get the books, it's just, it'll just take me like probably 2-3 days to package everything. And we're already working on volume 2, Tim. We're already drawn. We're like 30 pages in.
Tyler is one of the hardest working people I know. We were talking a little bit before the stream that, this guy, he basically spent like 8 to 9 months doing 200 pages for this book. And that is dedication right there, because it's like, you're not being paid to do this. You're essentially gambling on yourself. And I respect people who do that, because it means that you believe in your work enough to take that risk. And regardless, like whether or not you or me or anyone else fails, it's the idea that, look, the proof is in the pudding. What more can I do? Like, I can't do anything more than I've done already. And I think that's very admirable, especially because guys like you and me and some other people that we know, we not only get the work done, but we put it out. And I think that's great. And it speaks volumes to not only your character, but also in how much you believe in your work. So guys, fill out your surveys.
Yeah. So all in all, fill out your surveys. Yeah. I think it says at the like when it says like risks, like the Kickstarter, I said the only risk is you. I think that's what I wrote. Like, the only risk is you not filling your survey, because the books will like we give the printer the money like the week later. So you're the only risk to this book, you not getting your book.
Exactly. So it's like the onus of responsibility is on you. And I think on our campaign we say the same thing. We say the onus of responsibility is on you, the reader, and we don't mean that in the disparaging way. What we mean to say is, like, we literally can't do anything if you don't read this and if you don't fill out your survey. Because, I think the people who are very much on top of things, they'll message me and they'll say, hey, I ordered your book, but didn't ask me for an address. And I'm like, oh, those people are on top of it, because they know, like, something's not right here. Because how can you be sent a book if you didn't fill out your address? And then that's when we tell them, nah, Kickstarter does things kind of in a weird way, where they have this quote unquote survey at the end that you fill out, and that's where you give your information. So, man, you and I both are looking forward to those late surveys, I'm sure.
I haven't experienced the add-on section with Kickstarter yet.
Oh boy.
So like last year, one lady, she bought the main book, but she gave me $80, and so I was like, oh, this is great. She just loves me. And then I didn't read the message that said that. Like, so I shipped out her book, and apparently she sent a message saying, I want 4.
Oh boy.
So I was
so
like,
she didn't
oh crap.
Give you a tip.
Yeah, I
she
thought it
does
was a tip. I was like, oh, she loves me. People love me. No, she wanted 4 books, and I didn't send them to her. So I was like, crap. Okay, give me a second. I'll get these to you.
Hey, so let me go back to this thing that you were mentioning before, and I had thought about this recently. Um, so you and I both watch anime, and we read manga, and what I'm enjoying about it is that there are certain genres that I would have never thought I would ever entertain simply because they're not in my wheelhouse. And one of the things I'm watching a lot of right now is a lot of like rom-coms, like a lot of anime
Mm-hmm.
romantic comedies. And The Girl with the Mega Fist, there's at its heart, if you just want to take it as a romance, it's like it's a will they won't they, because it's like she has a choice. So in a way, it's what they call the reverse harem, where it's a girl who's presented with 2 male suitors, and you don't know which one she's going to end up with.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought about it because have you ever seen the quintessential quintuplets?
I've seen a couple episodes. I have a guy at work who's like every day is like, Tyler, you watched the show yet? And I'm like, no, no, no.
Oh
And
my
I finally
gosh,
watched like a couple episodes, and I was like, oh, I can see how you can get hooked on this.
it's so good, but it's frustrating because you know he's going to end up with one of the five, and I finished it, and I was so mad.
So good. Well, that's the fun thing about a harem is that's the best thing about a harem is you're like, man, because you have your girl. You
Yeah.
have your girl, and then when they don't pick you, you're like, gosh, dang it. It's like watching The Bachelor or something. You're like, I hope they get together, and you're like, crap, they don't.
Well, I think
Um,
it's a little bit different because for me, for example, like it's not so much like, oh, I think that girl's the best. It's like you're the matchmaker. You're like, no, I think that this guy has really good chemistry with this girl, or vice versa. And then you
yes.
get kind of mad because, like, for example, at the end of it, I wanted to see like, did other people think the same thing? So I Googled it, and sure enough, people were like, what the heck was the writer thinking? Like that was like not the match that it needed to be. I'm watching this one right now. Ever since Crunchyroll merged with Funimation, it's been kind of good because now we have like 2 libraries of stuff to choose from. But
Hmm.
it's this anime called the bottom tier the bottom tier character Tomozaki-kun. I don't know if you've heard about it or not, but
No.
essentially is this guy, and he's a pro gamer in Japan, but he's a freaking loser in real life. Like he has no social skills, and his competitor is the number 2 person in Japan, and he finds out that it's actually like his classmate who's like super popular and whatnot. And so she's weird because it turns out like her dark side is that she sees everything as a game, even life. So she's like, no, life is just a giant game. If you think about it, you have experience points, you level up, you have like a party that follows you around everywhere, you have comrades, you have multiplayer. And so she's like, I'm going to reform this guy by teaching him how to not be a loser just by applying like life principles. And it's fascinating because like in the first 2 episodes, the guy's a schlub, like never cuts his hair, doesn't dress properly. Like the moment like she meets him for the first time in public and realizes, oh my gosh, it's my classmate, she's just like, freaking nerd, like look at your shoes, they're dirty, like your jeans have holes in them, they're like a size too big, you haven't cut your hair in months, like you smell bad. And so she basically is like, you are going like we're going to teach you how to live life like a game, and the first thing you do in the game is character creation. You know character creation, right? And he's like, yes. Why do you do it? And he's like, because it makes you feel good when you're playing the character. She's like, yes. You're not going to feel good about yourself looking like that. So first
Well,
thing
this
we're
is
going to do is
interesting.
get you new clothes. We're going to cut your hair. So I liked it because like I'm on episode 11 so far, and eventually it turns into kind of a harem because she's like, all right, now what you're going to do is you're going to get a girlfriend. And at this at this and at this point is where like kind of the dark side of the story takes place, because it's like, oh my gosh, she sees everything as a game, and he's starting to see life for what it really is. So he's like, but I shouldn't ask this girl out on a date if I don't really like her. She's like, no, you ask her out on a date because that's the game. The game
Because
is
it'll
that
level
it
you
creates,
up.
it's to level you up. And he has this conflict where he's like, this is effed up. Like maybe life isn't just a game. Maybe it's like there's real stakes. Like there's real people who can get hurt by this. And anyway, I'm like, all right, I know who he needs to end up with. And I found out who he ended up with, and I'm just so mad because I'm
Is it
like,
maybe
no, like that's not how it should be.
maybe
But
that well
it,
maybe that's the point of every harem is it's I have yet to read one where I was like happy with the who the person got.
uh,
I read one. This is so degenerate. I read one called Love Amateur, this guy's a degenerate. He can't get girls, can't go on dates. And this guy is like, hey, dude, I see that you just have no skills. You suck.
Right.
I'm gonna give you these glasses, and he puts these glasses on, and the guy disappears. And when this guy has the glasses on, he's able to see the stats of every girl, like, and what they're into. And that he accidentally bumps into this girl, and she's like, "Oh, hey, sorry," and he's like, "Oh, sorry." And a little menu pops up in the glasses that says like, "If you say this, plus 10. If you say this, minus 10." So he goes, "Oh," so he says the good thing. And then she's like, "Oh, that was like really nice of you." And then it has like two other options. And one of them's like, "Say this, you'll sleep with her. Say this, she'll go away." And he's like, "Huh." So he says he sleeps with her. He says the thing, she sleeps with him. And he's like, "Oh man." Like, and so the first couple like chapters are just him like abusing these glasses, and super degenerate. And then you find out that these glasses were created by the gods. And the guy stole them from heaven, and then there's like this big war with like Satan and God. But I'm trying to get to the point. He has like 5 girls, and he picked the wrong one. I remember just like being like man, like I just wasted like 2 weeks like religiously reading this. And he picked the wrong one, and I read another one, same thing, picked the wrong one. And maybe that's what a good harem is. They always pick the wrong. Maybe that's the story in life. You always pick the wrong girl. I won't tell my wife that.
Or maybe it's just that, I don't know. It's we project onto other people what our expectations are, but sometimes obviously life just doesn't work that way. You don't want it to be too predictable.
And maybe like there was this girl that I really liked before I was dating my wife. Her name was Sage, and like
is that her real name or was that her stage name?
No, that's her real. Oh man, no, it's her real name. And how she was so beautiful, still is. And I'd go to her house, and she's like, "Tyler, we're playing D&D tonight." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And she watched anime, and she read comics, and she'd be like, "Tyler, let's go to Comic-Con." And she was just so gorgeous, and I always was like, man, like this is the girl like I should be with. And then like one time she like invited me over like 2 a.m. and I was like, I was clearly she wanted to make out, and I did not do that. I was like, I'm getting tired. It's just so total stupid. Like I needed those glasses. And so, but like, anyways, I met my wife. We got married, super in love. And I'm looking at her now, and she's like everything now that I hate. And so it kind of was like, I probably could have, if I had pursued that, because she had all my quote unquote ideals, we'd probably be divorced right now because we're the complete opposite. So maybe in the harem we go, you pick her, but maybe had they picked her, they wouldn't have fallen in love.
Yeah, it's it's interesting because I'm trying to think of the ones I've seen so far where I was like, it ended the way I thought it would end, and it was fitting,
I started watching Toradora.
I can't get into it. I was 3 episodes in, and I was like, I don't know. There's something about it that I don't.
Okay, I'll be honest. I'm only 3 episodes into it too.
Oh,
so I stopped watching it because there was some cheesy parts. I was like, okay, the hook wasn't as good. As some of the others. Yeah, I'm only 3 episodes into, but I started like 2 weeks ago.
There was another one too. So I think you might have seen people complaining about it, but I think depending on the show, if it goes past like wholesome territory, people just don't care anymore. So spoiler. If people don't want to know about this, have you heard about Kaguya-sama Love is War?
Oh man, that's another one that is on my queue to watch on my Funimation, which I
okay. Well, I won't spoil it for you then.
But I mean, it's what, season 2 or 3 is coming out.
Season 3 is coming out.
Yeah, so like if you told me, because I'm still trying to finish like Jujutsu Kaisen. So and then once Chainsaw Man comes out, like I'll be addicted to that. So you could say what happens, and I'm gonna forget.
So in Love is War, it's a really good. I think that, what does Mark call it? He calls it non-battle anime, where essentially they take a mediocre thing and they're able to basically turn it into this really exciting, almost action
Like
type
Food
scenario.
Wars?
Yeah, kind of like Food Wars, where it's
Okay.
like, no, they're just cooking, but the way they animate it makes it so lively. Well, in Kaguya-sama Love is War, it's about this guy and the girl, and they're the vice president and president of the student council, but they're both too prideful to tell the other one that they love each other, so they play games to try and get one to confess, even though like they're not aware that the other person really actually does like them. But it's like so wholesome. You could watch like the whole first and second season, and it's just great in terms of the setup and the plot and everything. But spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. So apparently in the manga, like they not only confess, but they shack up with each other.
Yeah.
And it's just a buzzkill because you're like, well, that's over. I mean, like in so many ways, it's like one, like the hasn't even concluded in that way. It's just there right in the middle of the story. And
it takes away the conflict as well of like the story. Like the conflict is that, yeah.
But it's also the innocence of it too, right? Because it's like up until this point, I mean, literally nothing has happened. No hugging, no kissing, nothing. And then it's just like,
and then boom.
Then boom, up. You know, yeah. And I don't know, it was just kind of this buzzkill. But I was gonna say the one that has paid off, where I was like, man, it ended great, and then he ended up with like the one who I think most people were rooting for. It's called Orisuki.
I've never heard of it.
Oh man, it's great. It's called Orisuki. Are you the only one who loves me? But that's a really funny one.
Orisuki. Are these all on? I have to move my freaking Funimation count to Crunchyroll.
I think they might have blended automatically. Like I think if you have one account, I think it automatically populated.
No, I got an email from Funimation. They're like, you have to cancel.
I'm looking at this. Okay, I'm catching up with the chat. Let me see here. We never learned had a weird ending. Protagonist ended up with all but none. So I don't know what that means. I'm actually watching the anime and I'm caught up. Right now, he hasn't really ended up with anyone. So I don't know what that means. I'm guessing you're referring to the manga. Domestic Girlfriend. I started watching that one and it got twisted really quickly.
I read a manga called "Is It Wrong to Be Done by a Girl?"
I heard your review of that.
Yeah, and you know what? They haven't made the second volume yet. And it was like, I don't remember if there was any like degenerates. I don't like to read that kind of stuff, but I was so hooked on like their relationship because it was so innocent. That is a good way to say it. If innocent relationships are fun because there's like this conflict, and the moment it gets gross, you're just like, okay, like now this is porn.
Yeah, well, it turns into the thing. It just breaks that. But the reason you watch it is because it's wholesome and it's innocent. And the moment they do something, it just completely shatters like that illusion. And then it turns into something else kind of completely. And that's like, for example, like I think it was Matt Weldon. He recommended this one to me called Horimiya, and it was really good. And then they shacked up. Like I was like, wait a minute, there's still like 4 episodes left in the season. Like, what the heck is this? There was another one I could recommend that's really good. It's an older one that came out in the early 2000s. Oh crap! Oh, it's called Lovely Complex. So it's about,
I've heard of that one.
It's really good. It's about a girl and a guy who have been friends since they've been kids, but she's tall and he's short. That's the plot. And what I liked about it is it ends the way one of these rom-coms are predicted to end, but it's good. You know, it literally ended with them in a relationship, and that's it. So there's a couple. I think the majority of them are very, very good. All in all, it's just that
I'm really enjoying like with the girl with the Megafist having this kind of like love dynamic in this conflict, and so I have this rule, Tim. I'll tell people. I'll tell your peeps on here. Is I draw the girl with the Megafist on my main tablet, which is on my desk at home. But when I'm at work, and I bring my iPad, I draw a separate series.
Oh,
I draw a separate series.
You multitask.
Yeah, because with the girl with the Megafist, I have to, because I upload it on Patreon first. I have to draw 12 pages every 2 weeks. To keep up my weekly schedule for my patrons, because they expect a new chapter every 2 weeks. And so I draw those on my main tablet, but on my iPad I draw a separate series, and I only have to draw like like a page or two a week. So it's like two or three lunch breaks.
That's still a lot. That's 14. That's essentially 14 pages every 2 weeks, which is a page a day.
I know. I love comics, man. They're so awesome. I love my wife said the same. My wife was like, Tyler, why are you drawing all these books? I'm like, because I'm having so much fun drawing. So, and she was like, Tyler, so my other one's that like kind of a romance. It's called Saving the World with My 3 Video Game Girlfriends. And it's an action adventure, but there's like this kind of romance, kind of like, you know, there's 3 girlfriends. Well, each volume will show a different girl from a different video game. And do you guys? My point of bringing this up was one, that I'm working my ass off, but 2, with Common America, obviously you guys are keeping tons of stuff close to the chest. But I know that it was volume 4. It was volume 4 that Misha.
Mm-hmm.
And the
I
dude,
know where you're going with this.
No, it was, I guess, like, do you guys have like, what's the plans with, like, do you guys want to explore more of like romantic sides of like some of the characters?
That is 100% for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So for people who might be keeping up with it, we do have.
Sorry if I spoiled anything.
I don't know what do you call it? Is it I guess it's just a general harem. You know how like in harem anime, it's a guy and then the choice of girls, and then in the reverse harem, it's a girl with a choice of guys. Well, what happens when the whole pool is basically like, you don't know who's going to end up with who, like at the end of it. That's essentially what is going to happen.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah, you know, we're not going to string it along. Well, it's not going to be a focal point for, I think, any of the major storytelling. It's basically like the B plot.
Yeah.
But
people like that.
Things, apparently they do, because a lot of people have been like messaging us and they're like, I hate what you did, but I love it too, because now I want to see like where it's going to end up.
That's how I felt when I read it. And I should have seen it coming. Honestly, how you guys did it. I should have read better. I should have read what you guys were planning. Well,
the reason, like, I forgot who it was who messaged me, but they said like it kind of makes sense. Like, you root for the Siggy and Carly relationship because they've known each other ever since they've been kids, and so it just seems like natural that the guy next door and the girl next door get together. But it's like, but do they really? Because the person that they seem to have the most chemistry with is with Misha, because they both like guns. You know, She's kind of a tomboy. She's around longer. She's more blunt. Like she's going to be able to tell him exactly like what she's feeling. So it's like, like, is that really like a better choice, or should he go with the person that he has the most chemistry with? So,
well, I mean, later down the road, if they want to get together, they can. But
oh wow, you just gained 5 backers. You went to 174.
Oh, hey, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Awesome.
I just like when I read that, I went, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. It'll be cool to.
Wait, I want to address this. The press and sophomore. Isn't that just friends? It is, but no shacking up. So when I'll just spoil this for you guys. Whenever there's a relationship in the book, like a concrete one, I mean, it's solidified. We don't do the whole like, oh, then she's sleeping with him, and then he's sleeping with her, and then they swap. No, we're not gonna do that. We're trying to keep our book very PG.
Well, also, a lot of your characters are Catholic, and that's just not good. That's not good.
No, you don't do that. Yeah,
that's a no. But
big no.
I think that's what's cool. Like, readers connect with that. Like, I had at the end of volume 1, there's a, I won't say anything, but there's something to do with the relationship, and I had 2 Patreon members go, "What the F? What the F?" It's something to do with one of the brothers, and they were like, "What the F?" And I think it's one of those things where it's like the main plot of The Girl with the Megafist is the action adventure. Same thing with, like, you know, we guys got with Common America, but it's those B plots. Yeah, that people like really connect with.
The twist is that the girl that the guy she's in love with is actually a girl. She doesn't know what to think. It's like what Lester Dog says last minute.
Well, it's funny. My brother is like, he sucks at dating. He sucks at dating, and so this other series, which I plan to release next year, the saving the world with my 3 video game girlfriends, is each video he goes into like the different worlds of these girls, their video games. Like, there's sci-fi, Minecraft, and fantasy, and essentially these girls are there to like like teach him like a lesson on like women,
Uh,
and then at the end, he'll hopefully get with like the one he needs to be with. But I think people, I think people are starving for good love content. This is why like we just had a whole conversation about harem and dating manga and anime, and you don't find that kind of stuff in comics because everyone now apparently is gay.
no, or they all shack up with
Or
each
they all
other.
shack up, and then like
Yeah.
a year later they all break up.
Well, it's like what Fizz Chozo says. That's one thing I don't get in manga. Everything is promiscuous, and like for example, I don't like talking about comics, like mainstream comics. I feel like every topic has been beaten. It's like being the dead horse. But like you take Spider-Man. One reason why I like Spider-Man's relationship in the '90s with Mary Jane was I thought it was a very archetypical relationship. And as a kid growing up, you're like, oh, this is what happens. You're young, you get married, you get the girl of your dreams, and then you kind of live this life where it's just the two of you, and he's good looking and she's hot, and then maybe one day you're going to have a kid. It's awesome. But so there's this idea in most children's minds. It's this kind of romantic idea, this fantasy that your mom and dad were the only two people in the world and that they were meant for each other. So I think it's very rare for children's parents to talk about like their exes and stuff, right? Like you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear your dad being like, "Oh man, before I met your mom, I like bagged all these girls." Like no kid wants that, because in their mind, the idea is that their parents were meant for each other in this kind of idealized world. And when you have like comics where it's like, "Oh man, Spider-Man shacked up with She-Hulk and then the Black Cat and whoever," I'm like, then what the heck does it matter? Like this guy doesn't have any moral foundation. If everyone in the Marvel universe is just like basically boning each other, who cares? Like from a storytelling perspective, it doesn't really give your character a moral compass. Now people might say, no, that's archaic. You get with the times. It's like, I know lots of people who they're not necessarily conservative. They just are reserved. Like
it's still like I would say that's still the ideal for like
right.
The majority of people is you fall in love. Yeah, like maybe the whole like you shack up with a couple people beforehand, but the ideal is that eventually you will find that one person, get married, have kids, settle down. Like that is the ideal.
I know several men and women who are single and they're good-looking people, and they just have this kind of their virtue is, I'm going to settle down with Mr. Right, is essentially what it is. I'm not going to basically give myself away before then. And that in my opinion, regardless of how you might feel about that personally, that is admirable, because it means that you have like this degree of restraint where you're like, no, I'm saving myself.
And self-respect.
Exactly. And like I said, regardless of how you feel about that, that adds character to people, because not everyone is like a horn dog who's like trying to find the next person that you're going to swipe left or swipe right on. That, there's this kind of tradition that's baked into it. So I am seeing that in a lot of the romantic comedies I'm watching right now. For the most part, I would say for 95% of them, that is exactly how it is. And it's great, because like I said, it's wholesome, and it reaffirms kind of this idea of you are with them on this journey, because at the end they have to make a decision, and you hope that they end up picking the right person at the end. So
100%.
If people want some suggestions, there's a good one on Crunchyroll that it will leave you guessing until the end, but it's called Sing Yesterday for Me. And that one I think it's actually classified as a seinen, because it involves like people who are like past college years. So it's not necessarily geared towards like really young people, but that one is fantastic. It's only one season. You can tell it was made to be one season long, but that one is great.
I dig the whole. I picked up a manga volume, like it was a one-shot manga, and I was like, oh, this is cool, because I don't have to buy thousands of volumes to get the whole story. So I pick it up, and I start reading, and it's just about this dude, and he is like rich or something, and he like is like, I need to leave my life. I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. And he goes to the countryside. He meets this other dude, and this dude's a little older, and he's like wiser, and he's showing him how to have a simple life. And I'm reading this, and I'm like, this is great. Like really good life lessons. The character's really growing. It was a gay romance.
I knew you were going to say that.
I
think they made an anime out of it.
Really? Okay, because like I was like I was reading, and like they start getting really close to each other. I'm like, what the F am I reading? And like, then they kissed, and I went, what the F? Like, I thought this was just like mentor, like Jedi Padawan, like teaching, like maybe the old man dies and he gives away his, like, I don't know. I don't know. They, like, there's this big, no, it's just this gay romance. And I was like, damn it.
Sometimes they do that, and I it is the equivalent of like the last minute lesbian where they just pull the rug out from under you, but not necessarily in a good way or a way you're completely expecting. I'll tell you another one that's similar to that. It's called Usagi Drop. So it's about this guy, and he goes to his grandfather's funeral. And at his grandfather's funeral, there's this little girl running around, and everyone's like giving her the stink eye. They're like, oh, that stupid girl. So the guy's like, what the hell is up with this little girl? And it's like, well, it turns out your grandfather had a bastard child, and it's this little girl like running around. And it's like, well, who's going to take her in? And they're like, no one, because the mom left town. Like, she just stood up and left. And so we don't know what to do with her. So the guy's like, well, crap, I'm going to adopt her because she shouldn't, it's not her fault. So it's so sweet because like he's raising her and stuff. And I'm watching this. Guess how it ends?
Do they get together?
Yes.
Ew.
Yes. And I'm just like, oh man, like, nah. It was all wholesome and stuff. And, basically he raises like his future girlfriend. Just like, nah.
The cool guy in the chat goes, check those darn tags, Tyler. Sheesh. I know. And then Lester, and then Tyler's wife walked in the room. Yeah. I that's something that I'm getting into the manga world. I'm not used to like turning the back cover and seeing like a rating. Like comics don't do that. So it's been, I put a rating on the back of my comic because I actually really appreciate having the rating, because I'm like, man, sometimes you don't know what you're gonna get.
Right. Yeah, and especially because in storytelling, what is kind of appreciable is that you have to take the story where you think it will go like organically or logically, but it's also kind of like the expectations of your reader. How did Mark put it? It's not about subverting expectations. It's giving something that they didn't expect. But that's dangerous too, because obviously in both cases, like we were talking about, we didn't expect that to happen. Are you kidding me?
Well, didn't Mark also say not subverting expectations, but giving them something that they didn't see coming, that they wanted.
Yeah. And I did not want this guy eventually
I didn't want this old man shacking up with the main character dude. I was like, wait, this is gross.
There was one that was similar to it, but it did it a whole lot better. Like what was it called? I'm looking through this library, but you might know the plot. Essentially, it's this runaway. No, it's called like I Took in the High School Runaway. So it's about this college age like salary man, and he ends up finding like a street urchin, and it's like this high school student. And the moment he takes her in, because it's like, wow, what the heck? Like, are you like cold, hungry, or whatever? She's basically like, hey, mister, can I live with you? And he's like, I guess so. And the first thing that she wants to do is like sleep with him. And he's like, no, like, what the heck? Like, don't devalue yourself. And so he basically like teaches her, like, apparently she's been on the run for almost a year. And that's all she's been doing is just like shacking up with dudes. And
just so that she can have a place to stay.
Yeah, just so she can have a place to stay. And so he teaches her, like, no, you actually have a worth and a value, and you need to appreciate that, because you're going to end up growing into like a beautiful woman, and you need to know that you're worth more than just having to sell yourself.
Oh, that's a good story.
It is. Now, here's the thing. You see it coming, because eventually, like, she develops genuine feelings for him, because she's like, he's like a good guy. So at the end, her family comes to basically pick her up and be like, she needs to quit running away and come back home. So she goes back home, and she's like, I want you to come with me just because you need to like see me off. So she does. And he's like, what's your goal in life? And she's like, I want to find a man just like you, because like you're like best thing that's ever happened to me. And he's like, okay. Well, it flash forwards like 4 years later, and she's already out of high school. Like, she's in her first year of college. The guy's still single. And it ends with her like under the street light where he found her. And she's basically like, you still single? And he's like, I am. And she's like, well, I'm at that age. That's how it ends.
I was gonna say, like, there's like something kind of cute to that, and also something really gross and disgusting about
and
that.
I feel like the author was able to merge both together, because it's kind of like legally, like she waited until, you know, she was of legal age, and he's single, so it's up to you to decide how that went afterwards.
Oh man, well, I always joke because my wife and I are 6 years apart, and I always joke, like, because I dated this girl prior to her for like too long and she sucked, and I always go, yeah, I had to date so and so for 2 years because my wife's name is Ren, because Ren was still in high school.
Don't dox your wife.
Oh, don't worry, that's not her actual real name.
Oh, okay.
She just goes by that. But she's like, but Ren's like, she hates that joke because I'm like, oh yeah, I just had to wait till you got out of high school. Yeah, it's it's hard though. It's hard with the story that you just said, because it's really endearing and it's really good that she got out of that situation. It's just kind of gross. How old was the dude?
He was so in the story, I think they were 8 years apart. So I think like she was like 14 and the guy is like, I don't know, 20, 21, because he could drink. I remember that.
So he's like 22.
Yeah.
And then that's why he's like 30 and she's like 18.
Yeah.
Well,
is that okay? Let's see, half your age. Half your age plus 7 is what they said.
Hey, you know what? If you're happy and you don't divorce, and it all worked out. I mean, who am I to say? Who am I to say? I like Twitless's. He made his I shaved, then I brought home a high school girl.
That's what the title of it is.
Oh, 100%?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was just a joke. That is hilarious.
That's the name of it.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. I love that we've had a conversation that hasn't been negative about like books, because I've made it like my job, like on my YouTube channel, where the only time I'll say something negative per se is if I'm giving like a hot take on like commentary on the industry. But I will never like say, oh, this book sucked. Like, it's either a hot take on the industry, or I recommend, or if I want to recommend a book. And what's been great is we've spent basically the last like 45 minutes a list of, you should read this, you should read this.
Well, and what I like about it too, you'll notice, like, for example, in a lot of the YouTube commentary on comics, they're like, holy cow, this comic is bad, let's go through it, like, this is what sucks about it. In this case, like, I literally just give up reading or watching something because I reach one point where there's a story decision where I'm like, nope, I'm out. Like, that is like beyond like, yeah, my comfort level, or at least it took a direction that I disagreed with. But as far as like writing and stuff, it's like, it's all tight. Like, it's all what the author intended. I just happen to disagree with like that direction. So in a way, even when I don't recommend something, it's still positive, because someone might be hearing it and be like, oh, I like that one that Tyler recommended about that dude in the countryside. That's exactly what I'm doing.
And you know, here's the thing. It wasn't a bad story. Like, it was very well written. I just didn't see it coming.
That could be interpreted.
I know. The moment I said that, I went, I keep this wholesome. Don't say it. Yeah, there's just so many good like stories out there right now that people can get into, both just like not even just like web comics. I've been reading some webtoons lately. I always enjoy manga, but also like there's just been a lot of good indie comics that I've read lately, and I just think let's just talk about those. Like, we get it. Wonder Woman she sucks. Batman sucks. We get it. They're all dead, and like, what do you want to do? Like, they're not writing for you, but there's so much good content. I told my Patreon members, I'm like, I'm looking for my next bingeable manga.
Yeah.
I've yet to find it. Like, when I started reading The Promised Neverland, I binged that so hard. I was addicted to it. And then I read Bakuman, and I was addicted to it. And then Chainsaw Man, I was addicted to it. And I've yet to find that series yet where I've been like addicted.
Yeah. That's what I'm on the search for too, because I do that thing which I guess you're not really supposed to do, where you just binge it, because basically you blow through it so fast. It's like, oh crap, now I have to go find something else. So I'm trying to just take my time. Oh, you just got 3 more backers.
Shut up! Don't say that.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that, everyone.
That's awesome. But that's what I'm doing right now. Is that now that Funimation has added their library, I'm going through and being like, okay, what is it that he added here that I wasn't able to access like 2 weeks ago? So I'm having fun.
Do you? What's like your like? Do you give it like? When do you know you're gonna keep on going with the series? Do you
2 episodes?
2 episodes. Okay, you have a 2 episode rule.
Well, the reason it's a 2 episode rule is so this is what Mark told me. He said you'll notice that especially in like some rom-coms, the second episode they'll put a lot of fan service in it, and you have to decide by that point is this something that is like way too weird, or is it like something that you can tolerate? Like I'll give you an example. I was about to quit on this one, but it's that one that everyone loves now. It's the one called like My Dress Up Darling or Dress Up Girlfriend.
Yeah.
About the cosplayer. I almost gave up after the second episode because I was like, what the heck is this? Like
that's one of those ones where like your wife walks in, you go, I'm here for the story, trust me.
Yeah, that was one where I was like, I think I'm gonna nope out. And so I did. And then someone said online, they actually had the same observation. They're like, yeah, isn't it funny how you have these series where on episode 3 it just goes back to being like wholesome again? I was like, all right, I'm gonna give it a third episode. So I watched the 3rd episode and I was like, yeah, now I like it because it's just back to being like cute.
Have you heard the anime Jobless Reincarnation?
I have heard about it, but I don't like isekai, so someone's gonna have to sell me on it because I have not like much of the isekai I've seen recently. They all kind of copy each other as far as
they're all the same. Apparently this is like the better. It was like the best. It was like the most watched anime I think like last year.
Okay, so it's the Jobless one, right? Because it's ranked pretty high on Crunchyroll right now.
Yeah, I was watching it. I was essentially listening to it while I was drawing one night, and I binged a couple episodes, and I missed a lot of. There's some. It's like what you said. Like the first episode has all the first and second episode have like the degeneracy, and you're like, come on, like like really, like we don't like. Do we need this? And
yeah.
But after that, the third episode onward, I was like, oh, this is a pretty good series about, I don't know, just a guy getting a second chance.
Yeah.
But yeah, most isekai are bad. So,
real quick, people in the chat, we're gonna close this out real quick. But if anyone has any recommendations, go ahead and post them. I want to address this real quick. Taika527 says, My Hero Academia Vigilante's great side story better than the original. I agree 100%. I always tell people that I just keep up with My Hero Academia just to keep up with it, because like when we go to conventions and stuff, we have to converse with people about kind of what's popular. So right now, My Hero Academia is popular, but I like Vigilantes a whole lot better.
That's what I've heard.
Well, what I like about it is, for example, you have it's something they talk about where they talk about the vigilante system, and it's like you have these unregistered heroes, and you're not supposed to be doing that. So it's like basically this guy who essentially is kind of like Deku, where it's like, my powers suck. He's essentially a human, what do they call it? Air hockey puck. So he gets on all fours and he can just basically glide on the surface like at a really slow pace.
Okay.
But he wants to be a hero, so he's not whiny like Deku. He's like, nah, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna break the law and be like a vigilante. I like it a whole lot better because I think it fleshes out the world more, because they're basically the underdogs. Like, what in the world do you do in a world where your powers suck or you don't have any abilities? There's a guy, he's basically like the Punisher, but his name is Knuckle Duster. He doesn't have any abilities. All he does is he has brass knuckles. So he just goes out and just beats the snot out of like
okay. When you got into reading manga or like watching anime, did you have to learn the terms that like this is peak or mid?
No, I don't even know the terms, honestly. Like I don't browse a lot of forums for reviews and stuff. I read it in isolation and make that decision on my own. So I'm able to judge
I didn't even know what they meant though. Someone was like, "Oh, My Hero Academia is mid, Vigilantes is peak," and I'm like, I don't. What does that mean?
About, like how they rank it in terms of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's how like movies you have Kino, which is like snobby, like really good movies apparently.
Snobby, really good
Have you heard
movies.
that? Like,
No.
so if you hear someone say, "Oh, this movie is Kino," that means like that's like Criterion class, like elite, chef's kiss, that type of thing.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I like the fact that you and I like we can talk about anime and manga, and I think there's things that we disagree on, but it's cool because we have different tastes. Like for example, you really like Chainsaw Man. I gave up after like the third volume, I think.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this is a young person's game. It's way too edgy for me.
Yeah, I loved it. I was like, this is, and maybe I'm curious if I reread it again, if I'd enjoy it. Maybe sometimes because I tried reading it like 2 or 3 times and I never could get past the first chapter.
Uh-huh.
It's like, I don't know. Maybe it's like maybe like my life circumstances at the time. Like that was what I needed. Like I binged Naruto for like 5-6 volumes and then I got bored. And
that's how I am right now with One Punch Man.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I'm so bored with One Punch Man.
It's so bad, and I don't know. I don't look at the rankings, but I wouldn't be surprised if it gets canceled because Saitama hasn't shown up in over.
That's why it sucks. That's why it sucks. It's been these side characters for so long.
And I liked it because I like the side characters, but I'm like, look, your book's called One Punch Man. He needs to show up because right now, and what I've liked about it is that it typically has that good mix of action and comedy, but now it's like all action. So basically I'm reading it just for Murata's art because the art is so good, but I'm like story wise, there's a lot to be desired because I'm like,
it's just not
this is
going
no better
anywhere.
than, well, it's no better than multi-episode arcs of Dragon Ball where they're just like fighting and nothing's really happening or just someone powering up. It's like, I'm way too old for this type of thing. Like, let's just speed it up.
Have you read or watched like Jujutsu Kaisen? Apparently that's really popular.
I've watched 3 episodes and I gave up. Because again, it's one of those things where I was like, I think this is a young person's game. There's like a shonen type thing.
Yeah.
And I could kind of see where it's going. That's where I give Chainsaw Man more credit. I stuck with it a lot longer. And the only reason I gave up on Chainsaw Man was it was just dark. Now, I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I really like Goblin Slayer. And I think Goblin Slayer is a lot darker.
Which is funny because I don't like Goblin. I like Chainsaw Man, but I didn't like Goblin Slayer.
I know, and that's what I was about to say. I was like, I've noticed that amongst like comic readers, for some reason they have those spats where it's like if you don't like something that I like, you're like persona non grata and you're like the worst. Whereas I think it's because of the plethora of genres that are available in manga. If you have a friend who reads manga and they don't have the same taste as you, it's no big deal because it's like, no, we just have different tastes as far as like these things are concerned. But I don't know. Like I said, I feel like I'm a hypocrite because I think Goblin Slayer is a whole lot darker than Chainsaw Man. But I think the difference is that in Goblin Slayer, you know it from the very beginning. Whereas in Chainsaw Man, I think the reason why it's so unsettling to me is I think it wants to have its cake and eat it too. Because I think like there's so many aspects of it that are so cute, but it's juxtaposed with the violence. Whereas
I would agree with you, except Goblin Slayer has like all the characters are cute.
No, they're not. I mean, like the girls are pretty, but there's nothing cute about it. Like
their world is really violent.
It's very violent,
and they set it up immediately. That's true. And I guess like with Chainsaw Man, I did like that whole like mix of cute, it's got really dark, but it's back to cute. It had like a sitcom feel where they're all eating food together, and then all of a sudden everyone's murdered. Whereas with Goblin Slayer, gosh, I remember reading that first chapter. Look, here's the thing. You know what's funny is I said I didn't like Goblin Slayer, but I did. I have like read it. Like I think I read like 40 chapters. And it wasn't that. Yeah, I guess. I read that first chapter and I think I was just so shocked that I felt like I had to keep reading.
Because you're like, it's almost like a car accident and you see like driving at a slow pace and you see like the bumper on the side of the road. You see like the wheel.
I had never experienced a story like that. I was like, this is grotesque. These goblins are gross. And then I was like, I have to keep reading. And then you get like the cowgirl, and I was like, oh, big boobs. Let's keep reading. And then you have like The Witch, and I was like, big boobs, keep reading. And I think the story in the world is of Goblin Slayer is cool. I think I noped when the goblins start. They go to fight. I think that
And
like
then
the
they use
cowgirl.
them as shields.
Yeah, I was like,
That's a second volume of the manga. So you actually,
okay.
yeah, you didn't actually make it
Okay, I
that
didn't get
far.
that far. I read that and I finished that arc, and then I went, I don't want to do this anymore.
I want to address this in the chat. Nat Misfit, hey, I'm sorry that we've been ignoring the chat. We've just been having a good conversation. Seems like everyone in the chat's been having a good time. I think some convo somehow made me more confused about which manga I would ever read. Here's the way I would approach it. You have to ask yourself what genre you like, and then you get recommendations as to what is considered to be good in that genre, and then you just start from there. Me personally, I've talked about this before. Coming from having read mostly superhero comics, I was started out with One Punch Man and Kill la Kill, and then after that, it was just uphill from there. I just kept on following that rabbit hole. For Kill la Kill, I like the animation, so I was like, what other things has this animation studio done? Which is Studio Trigger, and then the next one was Little Witch Academia, which I ranked like highly, top 5 animes, cartoons period I've ever seen like in my life. I really like it. Typically my wife and I rewatch it at least once a year. And then from then it's just different things. I got bored one day and it's like, well, what else can I watch? Oh, let's watch some comedy. And then it was recommended to me some rom-coms, and that's why right now I'm on a rom-com slice of life kick. And I think that's all I've been.
You've been on that for a while.
A long time. I think over half a year for sure.
Yeah.
Nothing but rom-coms and slice of life. And I've gone through every slice of life in that library. Like I've seen everything at least. I've seen at least the first 2 episodes of pretty much everything in the Crunchyroll library.
I do think though that with like comic people like Nat Misfit, they're like, what manga should I read? It's like what you said. It's like what's the subject matter that you like? Like if you are predominantly into superheroes, like mine was One Punch Man and Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah,
and I was like, because you're used to the fighting, and then, but I also liked a lot of the Vertigo mystery comics, and then that's how I found The Promised Neverland.
Yeah,
which is a mystery and a thriller mystery, and after that I had a hard time reading anything shonen. Like I don't like My Hero Academia.
Right. And I'm the same way because it's almost like, how do I put it? It's like you've gone down. It's like you're reading like baby stuff. Almost.
No, that's not a bad thing to say because when I read The Promised Neverland, I was like, holy crap, this was so good. Why would I ever read My Hero Academia? Like I didn't like it after that.
Yeah. Well, I had that opinion with the whole baby thing. It was like, I like seinen because it's more mature. So for people in the chat who might not be aware, shonen is typically catered to like young boys. So Naruto, I think, is in that category. Dragon Ball is in that category. My Hero Academia is in that category. Seinen is considered to be a little bit older, so kind of late teens, college age, and older. My Hero Academia, like I said, I keep up with it simply because it's popular. But the reason I don't enjoy it as much is because a lot of shonen is tropish. They repeat a lot of the same themes over and over. You always have like the tournament arc. You have typically you're gonna have the bad boy and then like the cool guy, and then like the protagonist kind of caught in the middle. And then you'll typically have like an older mentor who has something about him that's kind of quirky. So because I realize that these things are there, it makes it kind of difficult to watch because I'm like, oh my gosh, they're repeating a lot of the same humor. A lot of times it just doesn't seem as mature. But I do think it's a good place to start. For example, if you like X-Men and like the Avengers and that's what your cup of tea, I think My Hero Academia is going to feel more familiar to you because it essentially takes a lot of that storytelling and just applies it. Whereas I would say that One Punch Man, the first season of it will probably win you over because they're playing on hard mode. A lot of times people are like, well, I don't like writing Superman because he's such a boring character. What do you do with this guy who's like really powerful? Well, the Japanese are like, all right, we're going to have a character who can literally kill everything with one punch. Let's see where this goes. And they run with it, and it's great. I mean, it's
great.
The first season of the anime you can watch on Netflix, Crunchyroll. It's on everything. It's on Hulu. Watch it, and you'll be astonished because it's hilarious. So they basically make it into a comedy. You learn a lot about Saitama's character, like how he's kind of an idiot, but he's also very virtuous, very humble. he can kill things with one punch, and because it's so outrageous, people don't believe it, so they attribute his wins to other people, but he doesn't care. He's like, all right, fine, whatever. Yeah, this other person did it. No big deal. So
And
you
the
see
art
how
is
it can
so
be done.
good.
What'd you say?
And the art is so good
Yeah,
that
Yusuke Murata, he's like S tier level artist.
he's so good. So I do agree that's like one of those like when my brothers my brothers were really big into anime and manga before me, and they're like, "How you gotta watch One Punch Man?" And I was like, "This sounds so stupid. This sounds like a Superman ripoff." They go, "No, it's so good." And I watched the first 3 episodes. I was like, "Oh, this is really entertaining." If you want though a recommendation app on a comic, I recently bought Batman the Imposter. It's a Black Label graphic novel, and it was entertaining.
Have you read that? I want to read that Joker manga where he has to adopt like a baby.
Oh my gosh, it's not in English right now.
Oh, is it not?
I'm waiting. Like I love Batman, and that's all. When people ask me comic recommendations, I only read Batman, and so I'm waiting because I saw some images of like Joker has like a chest carrier for his baby, and I'm like, and he's at the hospital. I'm like, this is nuts. And I was talking to a friend actually. Sorry, that's too kind of a word. Another comic book creator. And I was like, this is awesome. And they went, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I went, you're right. It kind of looks really silly, to be honest. If you're a hardcore superhero DC Marvel person, you're right. This does look absolutely ridiculous. But it's like what you just said. They're playing on hard mode.
Right.
This is a story that you're not going to see in the mainstream. Let's give it a chance. Like the premise to me fits one with everything that the Batman and Joker relationship is. Their spin on it is so radical. That's like, yeah, why not? You know that I read Deadpool, the Deadpool manga.
Yeah,
is the most read Marvel comic in the last 2 years.
Which is sad because apparently, so what I heard was they had given the rights to a manga publisher, and it did so well that now like basically Marvel has like buy the rights back from them.
I heard that too, and apparently they were like being like, no, you can't do that with Deadpool. No, you can't. But yeah, I mean they did it better.
Yeah. Well, going back to the whole thing with Batman and the Joker, where he's like a baby, I think that is like the litmus test where you have to win over a lot of Western comic book readers who are very adamant at not reading manga, where it's like these guys are playing on hard mode. It sounds ridiculous, but it's going to be good. Now, I'm saying that I haven't read it, so I don't know if it's going to be good, but I can guarantee you it's probably better than anything that's out on the shelves right now.
Well, I think you said
how they do it,
last year, I think we were doing a stream and you were like, you said like, if I hear the premise and it's absolutely bonkers, I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, it's completely true. It's like I think a few weeks ago we were talking about this one. It hasn't been translated yet, but the manga is called like, my dad is a high tier adventurer and my mom is a healer and I'm just a retard. Like that's the name of the manga, and so that's on our list. Like Mark and I are like, nah, when that book comes out, we're reading it because like it sounds so it's great, like you just know they're gonna play with that premise. Like one of the first manga I read in I've only been reading for the last like 4 years, so not long at all, but it was called like My Girlfriend is a T-Rex, and it's just a slice of life about a world where like you have like these centaur like people where they're like human from the torso up, but they're like animals from the waist down. So it's just about like how does this girl like operate when she's a T-Rex? Like how does she get in and out of doors? How does she like put on a dress? It's just, and it's like pretty wholesome. There's no like pervy stuff or anything in it. It's like it's great. There was someone mentioned in the chat. There was an anime. It was called Aho Girl. So in Japan, I think in Japanese, aho means like stupid. It's kind of like baka. It's just a pejorative that just means you're just dumb or silly. It's just literally about a stupid girl. That's it. But they play with the premise, and it's like this is freaking funny. So
I had a past coworker. He only buys physical manga, and he lives in a tiny apartment, so every now and then it's time to clear the bookshelf to get new.
Uh-huh.
And then he'll go, Tyler, do you want my manga? And I've yet to say no. So I just got like 10 volumes of a manga called Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in the
Girls
Dungeon?
in the Dungeon. It's a great anime. I've seen the first season.
Yeah, so I started reading the first volume. I was like, this is really entertaining. And yeah, just like some of the premises, sometimes you have these crazy titles or these premises that I don't think comic book readers are ready for.
Yeah.
Like, I had a lot of flack when people were like, Tyler, your book title is called The Girl with the Mega Fist. That's really dumb. And I went, why? They go, you just kind of gave it away. And I'm like, yeah, you know what you're getting into. Like, there's this girl with the mega fist. There's no like two guys falling in love and you didn't see it coming.
Right.
It's about a girl with the mega fist, and I even told she got big fists. And I told some other creators, I was like, yeah, like I'm working on this series called Saving the World with My 3 video game girlfriends, and they go, Tyler, like just like make a 1-word title. And I'm like, but that's what it is. It's about a guy and he saves the world with his 3 video game girlfriends.
Right.
And they're gonna do all these cool stuff. And I think comic book readers, they're not. I mean, it took a long time for me to like get used to some of the names. I mean, yeah, like the one that you were talking about. My mom's a healer. My dad's a retard. Like it's like, and at first I was like, this is so stupid. But now I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. Like, that's what it is. I traded my life being I saw one that was like, I traded my life being a millionaire so I could be a third rank like swordsman. And I was like, okay. Or I traded like my wife's. It's just crazy. It's just crazy stuff.
So Twitlet says a whole girl is bananas, and then Depressive Sophomore says a whole girl is a special type of banana. I don't know if you guys mean that literally or figuratively. If you're meaning it literally, I didn't catch any of that.
Oh, girl!
All I know is it was funny when I watched it.
Did you? Have you like? There's and they have like just crazy concepts. Like I've never read it. I can't remember the name, but there's like one where it's like a battle royale, and it's like a bunch of dudes with their wieners. Have you heard of it?
I have, and I think. Are you talking about the anime or the manga? Because
I don't know. I just know that there's it's called Dick Fight Island.
Yes. So my friend, no one's met him yet, but he used to be our agent, and he got really busy and he got married and has a kid, so he kind of dropped out of the game. But he's ready to do some stuff up, and so I was like, I should just let you use our Bunderdome channel, and maybe get a TikTok account. Where all he wants to do is just like do 30-second manga reviews where it's not even him like reviewing the manga. It's him at the Barnes and Noble, like picking up the book and being like, oh, check this out. It's called Big Fight Island. And then it just cuts to him like opening it. He's like, whoa. Like, talk about truth in advertising. Like, that's it. That's his review.
Oh my, yeah.
It's stuff like that where it's like, the title tells you what it's about, and even though that's not your cup of tea, like you're tempted to be like, no way is that what this is about, and you like look through 2 pages like, oh crap, like that's exactly what that's about.
Yeah, and at that point you go, well, let's see where they can go with this. Like,
yeah.
Let's see. And most of the time, because they're playing on hard mode and they know how to play on hard mode, regardless of if it's like a terrible or stupid story, it is they most of the time are entertaining.
Yeah, no matter how ridiculous they are, you're gonna get a chuckle, even if you don't read it. You're gonna be like, whoa, like what the heck? 100%. Taiga527 says, a rare marriage, how to grill our love. If that's an anime, let me know. I'll add it to my list. I'll check it out tonight. I'm running out of things to watch. I've been watching Cells at Work Black because I like Cells at Work, and so they just released the Black series, which is pretty funny. But I'm about to wrap that one up too here pretty quickly.
It looks like the How to Grill Our Love is
a manga.
Oh,
okay.
No anime. No anime yet.
People in the chat, Spy X Family comes out on Crunchyroll in April. I think April 5th.
It's gonna be
So I'm
great.
really excited about that. If you haven't been picking that up, that is my highest recommendation for manga. I don't miss a volume. That is a really good one. And whenever they post a new chapter on Shonen Jump, I always read it. I consider that.
Talk about hard mode as well. A spy, assassin, a girl with um, telepathy, and she's the only one who knows that the husband's a spy and the mom's an assassin.
And then don't forget the dog.
And
the dog is a clairvoyant.
Yes. So like, I remember you telling me to read it, and I think I binged like the first 2-3 volumes.
What I like about it, it's a genre I don't like. Outside of James Bond movies, I typically don't like the spy genre. So I was like, dang, this is so good. Like, this is a genre that I'm not interested in. Same thing with like rom-coms. I don't like rom-coms, at least not ones put out in America. But shoot, when it's an anime, I mean, they make it really entertaining. So a lot of stuff out there. Tyler, I got to run. My wife just baked a pizza. So
heck yeah. Well, I'm gonna go upstairs and I'm gonna eat food for the first time today because I've been cleaning up from kid and wife.
Yeah. So
there's no way that you can eat in front of people who have like thrown up all day. You just feel guilty.
We got you some more backers. You're at 179. Woo woo.
I really appreciate everyone. That means a lot. This was I had people who were like, Tyler, you need to be on more shows. You need to do this, and my mental health can't deal with that. So I was like, I have a good product. I'm going to share it. I'm going to have if people want to back it, they can. If not, it's okay because I know I believe in my product so much that I know that when we put out volume 2, people will go, crap, I should have got volume 1. Now's my time to pick it up. Or maybe it's just not the right time. But I appreciate you letting me come on, Tim, and I'm grateful for everyone who's backed it. I'm also just grateful for everyone who's listened to our conversation. It was a silly goose time.
It's always a silly goose time. And like I said, if you guys ever meet Tyler at a convention or just out in public or something, he's the real deal. He'll tell you if he needs to use the bathroom, which is good. I'm glad he gives us a warning ahead of time. But it's always a fun time whenever we can get together. So Grow with the Megafist has less than 24 hours left. So 1 day left to go. Common America Volume 5, we end at the Ides of March. So we have about 4 days left, roughly. Make sure to check us both out on Kickstarter. We always produce and we always deliver. So you can always trust us as far as your campaign money is concerned, and we always put it to good use. But anyway, we had a silly goose time tonight. Have a good night, everyone. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you guys very soon.
Peace.
Bye.